Hey everybody, it's Jim here, and today we're going to be checking out the last of the 3 guitars that we purchased from the Pitbull Audio sale, and that is this Vintage V100 THB for Honeyburst, I would assume. So let's get it on the bench and have a look. So first things first, it looks like a traditional Les Paul style instrument. There's no funny business as far as the electronics go. No push-pulls, nothing of that nature. Just straight up humbuckers. That's all you're going to be getting here. And speaking of these humbuckers, these are Wilkinson ceramic PAF voiced humbuckers. That should be interesting compared to the Alnicos that I'm typically used to using. You have a Wilkinson style tune-o-matic bridge and a Wilkinson stop bar. 3-way selector switch that feels pretty solid, if I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like the maple cap on this guitar, it seems like one of those things where they did a really good job of narrowing down and cutting costs where it was reasonable to do so while maintaining a lot of the classic elements of an instrument of this style. Alright, one thing I definitely wanted to look at with this guitar is the actual electronics that it uses as far as the components go. These are alpha mini pots. These are not full-size pots, so if you wanted to replace the electronics on this guitar, you would have to have the holes on the top enlarged by a little bit to accommodate the full-size CTS pots. There's a little sticker, little green thing right there. All that says is QC passed, and it has the date 5/5/18. Wow, so this guitar was sitting around for quite some time as a new guitar before we had purchased it. And you have leads that are taped off underneath here, meaning that these pickups would be able to take advantage of a coil split if you wanted to replace the electronics and add that in. And if you loved the tone of these pickups as it is, we'll have to judge how we feel about them, after the sound samples, but the possibility is there. Now, one modern touch to this guitar that I've seen on several other guitars of this kind of nature, it does have the kind of altered cutaway, so you'll have better access to the upper frets when you're playing, as opposed to a traditional Gibson Les Paul or ones that are modeled directly after it. Okay, moving on to the neck here, checking out the fret edges. It's not bad. I mean, it's not the smoothest thing in the whole world, but it's nothing so sharp that I feel the need to immediately take a file out or something like that to kind of remedy that situation. So pretty good. A 12-inch radius on a rosewood fingerboard. The shape of this is like a 60 slim taper. It is very narrow compared to the standard 50s Gibson that I had. I held them back to back and I was like, whoa, this feels like a shredder neck by comparison. But really, it is more akin to a traditional Gibson 60 slim taper. Alright, taking a closer look at the headstock, this is where things get very interesting, because one of the main reasons I have waited this long to get one of these guitars in to demo and take a look at is because I have had a kind of inkling here that these are made in the same factory by the same people that make the Harley Benton guitars now in Indonesia. One of the big giveaways to me is the way that the headstock ripples are. They're almost identical. I wish I still had one of the Harley Benton single cut style guitars in so we could measure it precisely, but it looks damn well enough exactly the same. Even the truss rod cover has the same little indent that one of the, I think it was the SC552 had. But outside of that, you do have your Vintage logo on it. These are Wilkinson branded tuners. Yeah, having a closer look at the back, Vintage John Horby SKUs product, designed in association with Trevor Wilkinson, and yes, Wilkinson Deluxe tuners on this guitar. Guys, this is a heavy guitar weighing in at over 10 pounds, over 4.5 kilograms. Definitely not my cup of tea in the weight department, but the actual feel of it feels pretty decent. So I'm excited to try and play this thing. We're not going to be going through the Mesa Boogie. That Black Star hasn't gotten any love in a long time, so we're going to be using that, keeping this really a budget-friendly setup. The Studio 10 6L6. We will still be using the Jackson Audio Optimus pedal for our drives, but any reverb you hear, that's going to be straight out of the Black Star. With that being said, yeah, it does remind me a lot of a Harley Benton in a few ways, except with some of the other touches that some of the new ones come with, but we're going to touch on that after the playthrough. So without further ado, let's hear what it sounds like. Alright guys, I just finished up the sound sample of this Vintage V100, and the first thing I have to say in this guitar's favor is it stayed in tune really well. I only had to tune this guitar once, and it was very slight, the G string. As usual for a Les Paul style instrument, went a little bit flat, but outside of that, this was very solid in that aspect. Now when it came to the tones themselves, ceramic pickups are kind of an acquired taste. Some people love them, some people loathe them. But you have to keep in mind, just because they're ceramic doesn't mean that it's cheap. There are guitars that are really high-end that feature ceramic pickups. It's all about what you're going after. I think for the cleans, it's a little bit harsh, but I don't think most people that would buy this kind of instrument would be buying it particularly to focus on the clean tones. So take for that what you will. Now another good feature of this guitar is the access to the upper frets is well designed, so you don't have to worry about reaching up to the 21st, 22nd fret if you're a real mad lad and want to do something crazy like that. If this neck profile works for you, and I'm going to get to that in a second, you're not going to have any problems getting up there and playing any sorts of leads. The reason I did not play up there for this demo is because this neck is even thinner than a 60 slim taper, and my hand's starting to cramp up. It does taper as you go towards the base of the guitar itself here compared to where it is at the nut in terms of the thickness to it, but it's still really skinny compared to a lot of necks that I typically play, so I found myself not in that area all that often. Hitting on the playability of the guitar, I had no problems with anything like that. The frets were actually decently polished here. We're not talking it's a perfect pro job, but some of the times when I get in other guitars in this kind of price range, they're really scratchy, and you can really notice it when you're playing. This guitar had a little bit more attention to detail and maybe time put into it to make sure that it was going to be playing very well out of the box, and I do appreciate that. And overall, there aren't really many cons. Some people don't mind a 10-pound Les Paul. Some people don't mind a really skinny neck. Some people prefer ceramic pickups. The guitar stays in tune great and it plays great. So what is the problem? And to me, it's not the guitar's fault. It's the price of this guitar, and when you consider the competition that it has, it's very similar and sometimes better equipped instruments. Now, this guitar in America brand new is going to run you $550 before tax. You can get a Harley Benton that I think is just right on par with this, if not better, depending on the model, and with better hardware appointments to it. Nothing against the Wilkinson hardware, but if you're going to ask me if I'd rather have Wilkinson or Goto, I'm taking the Goto every single day of the week here, and it's not even close. The fact that, you know, you can get the Tesla pickups in the SE Deluxe Goto like a Harley Benton guitar, have that hardware on it, the same great build quality to it, plus stainless steel frets for almost half the price, a little more than half the price. This makes this a really hard sell in that aspect if you're talking new to new. Now, introducing the used market into it, a very similar guitar that you can also find that I feel would be a better way to spend your money personally would be one of the ESP LTDs. I would go with either a 401. Those came with the Marzio 36th anniversary PAF pickups in it. That's really high quality. You wouldn't have to ever worry about swapping those out, and you might not necessarily want to swap these out. You might love these pickups. I personally, I'm not the biggest fan of them, but I'm trying to be as objective as possible so that you can make an informed decision. I just feel like there's better value options out there. Now, if you find a great deal on one of these guitars used or a B-stock version, like kind of what we did with the Pitbull Audio where we found one on sale for a great value, then not so bad. Understandable to spend $350, maybe $400 tops on a guitar like this, but $550 plus tax, to me, I would pass on it new at that price. That's just my personal opinion. And just to stress, there is nothing wrong with this guitar. It's not deficient in any way, shape, or form. I just feel, again, that there's other competition at a lower price point that gives you the same kind of build quality, you know, same really good hardware. In some cases, in my opinion, slightly a little bit better hardware. Pickups, that's for taste, and yeah, it's all about the logo on the headstock. What does that mean to you? Or I know some people, they like the Relic or Distressed, as they called them, from the vintage brand themselves. If you're going for that kind of thing, yeah, you have kind of lesser options to go for. I know the ESP 256s, some of those come distressed. Maybe that would be an interesting comparison one day down the road. If I ever have another one of these in and an ESP at the same time, that's something that I would feel would make for a very, very interesting kind of competition video. But that's all I have have for you guys today. I tried to be as honest and objective as possible. This guitar is definitely not for me. It is way too heavy, the neck is way too thin, but for somebody, I'm sure that they're gonna love it just fine because it does the important things really well. If you enjoy the content on this channel, please leave a like. It really means a lot to me. Subscribe if you haven't already. Other than that, I will see you tomorrow for another guitar-related video. Take it easy, everybody.